It happened so fast that half the courthouse lobby froze in disbelief. Less than 24 hours before a legal deadline that would erase everything he had spent 15 years building, Alder Bennett looked into the eyes of the only woman willing to marry him, and instead of saying yes, she quietly leaned closer and whispered, "Only if you promise me 3 things." In that instant, the marriage stopped being about paperwork and became something neither of them had expected. It became a choice that would expose old wounds, buried regrets, and the extraordinary cost of keeping a promise. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our community. Your support helps more heartfelt stories reach people who need them most. Alder Bennett had always believed that hard work solved every problem. Raised by grandparents who survived difficult times, he learned that showing up every day mattered more than talking about dreams. By the age of 43, he had transformed an abandoned riverside warehouse into one of the most respected artisan furniture workshops in the region. Every table, cabinet, and rocking chair carried a small brass plate engraved with the words, "Built to last." Those words described more than the furniture. They described the life he thought he was building. Then, within a single year, everything collapsed. His father passed away after a long illness, leaving behind complicated estate paperwork. His longtime business partner secretly sold his ownership share to an investment company. Hidden legal conditions surfaced, revealing that unless the company remained under continuous family ownership before the following afternoon, the investors could legally force a sale of the workshop and dismiss every employee. 48 families depended on those jobs. Lawyers searched for loopholes. Accountants searched for alternatives. There were none. The only remaining legal path required the business to qualify as a family-owned enterprise before the deadline. Alder wasn't simply unmarried. He was completely alone. His mother had died years earlier. He had no siblings. His engagement had ended almost a decade before after he devoted every waking hour to work instead of love. The irony was painful. He had spent years building furniture sturdy enough to survive generations while allowing every important relationship in his own life to quietly disappear. When word spread through the small town, sympathy arrived far more quickly than solutions. Friends wanted to help, but nobody would ask someone to enter a marriage simply to rescue paperwork. By noon, Alder accepted that he would lose everything. He walked away from the lawyers and wandered toward the small botanical garden beside the courthouse, hoping that one peaceful moment might prepare him to tell his employees the truth. There, surrounded by blooming flowers and children chasing butterflies beneath the afternoon sun, he unexpectedly saw someone he hadn't spoken to in nearly 12 years. Her name was Meredith Sloan. She sat on a weathered wooden bench reading a novel, looking almost exactly as he remembered, though life had added quiet wisdom around her eyes. Years earlier, Meredith had worked beside Alder restoring antique furniture before leaving town to care for her grandmother. She had never complained, never demanded attention, and never asked for recognition. Yet everyone who met her remembered how naturally she made others feel understood. She noticed him immediately. The surprise on her face slowly softened into concern. Within minutes, Alder found himself telling her everything. Not because he expected help. Simply because he had forgotten what it felt like to speak honestly to another human being. Meredith listened without interrupting. She didn't rush to fix anything. When he finished, silence settled between them while the afternoon breeze carried the scent of fresh roses across the garden. Finally, she looked directly at him. She admitted something that completely caught him off guard. Several years earlier, she had quietly inherited a small family trust that legally qualified her as part of an ongoing family enterprise. Combined with marriage, it would satisfy the final ownership requirement. Alder could barely believe what he was hearing. The impossible suddenly seemed possible. He asked the question awkwardly, almost embarrassed by how desperate it sounded. Would she consider helping him? Meredith closed her book slowly. She smiled with sadness rather than excitement. Then she leaned close enough that only he could hear. "Only if you promise me 3 things." The words carried no manipulation. No demand for wealth. No hidden condition. Only quiet sincerity. Her first promise surprised him. She wanted him to promise that if they married, every employee would always be treated like family rather than numbers on a payroll. She reminded him that businesses survived because ordinary people trusted extraordinary leaders. He agreed instantly. His second promise was more personal. She wanted him to promise that he would stop living as though work deserved every piece of his heart. She didn't ask him to love her. She asked him to remember that life itself deserved attention. Birthdays. Conversations. Meals shared without checking a phone. Afternoons spent walking instead of worrying. He hesitated only because he realized how badly he had failed at exactly that. Then he nodded. His third promise left him speechless. She asked him to promise that if, after 1 year, neither of them had found genuine happiness in the marriage, he would let her leave without guilt, anger, or obligation. She refused to become another sacrifice made in the name of saving a business. She wanted honesty more than permanence. For several long moments, Alder couldn't answer. Not because the promises were unreasonable. Because they revealed exactly who Meredith had always been. Someone who valued people before possessions. He quietly accepted every promise. That same afternoon, beneath bright sunlight pouring through courthouse windows, they signed the papers. There was no orchestra. No grand celebration. Only a judge, 2 smiling witnesses, and 2 people stepping into something neither could fully understand. News traveled through town almost instantly. Some people assumed the marriage was fake. Others predicted it would end within weeks. But the employees reacted differently. When Alder introduced Meredith as both his wife and an equal partner, many workers cried openly because they realized the workshop had been saved. Meredith didn't arrive acting like an owner. She arrived carrying homemade bread for the lunchroom. She learned everyone's children's names. She remembered birthdays. She convinced Alder to replace broken chairs in the break room before purchasing new office furniture for management. Slowly, something remarkable happened. Productivity increased. Arguments decreased. Employees stayed longer. Customers noticed the warmth inside the workshop. Orders doubled. Not because the furniture changed. Because the people building it had changed. Alder also began changing in ways that surprised himself. Instead of eating lunch alone at his desk, he joined everyone outside beneath the maple trees. Instead of staying late every evening, he started going home before sunset. He rediscovered laughter. He rediscovered weekends. Most importantly, he rediscovered gratitude. Months passed beneath bright spring skies that slowly became warm summer afternoons and colorful autumn days. The marriage that began as necessity slowly transformed into friendship. Friendship quietly became trust. Trust became something far deeper. Neither admitted it aloud. Neither wanted to risk ruining what they had found. As the anniversary approached, however, the third promise returned like an approaching storm. 1 year. Freedom to leave. Meredith never mentioned it. Alder couldn't stop thinking about it. He realized something terrifying. He no longer feared losing the business. He feared losing her. On the morning of their anniversary, sunshine streamed through the workshop windows while employees secretly prepared a celebration in the courtyard. Everyone gathered outside after lunch. Tables overflowed with homemade food. Children played across the grass. Laughter echoed through the air. Then Meredith quietly handed Alder a small envelope. His hands trembled before opening it. Inside rested the original written copy of the 3 promises. Beneath them she had added one final sentence. It simply read, "You kept every promise before I ever needed to ask." Alder looked up with tears filling his eyes. He finally understood. She hadn't stayed because of obligation. She had stayed because somewhere along the journey, the marriage had become real. For the first time in years, he stopped worrying about saying the perfect words. He simply told the truth. He confessed that saving the business had once felt like the greatest miracle of his life. Now he understood the real miracle had been meeting the person who taught him success meant nothing unless it was shared with someone who believed in the goodness still hiding inside him. The courtyard fell completely silent. Even children paused their games. Meredith smiled through tears that reflected both joy and relief. Without another word, she gently took his hand. That simple gesture answered every question neither of them had known how to ask. Before we reach the end of this journey, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us which of Meredith's 3 promises touched your heart the most, or share a moment when someone gave you a second chance that changed your life forever. Your story may encourage someone else who needs hope today. Years later, visitors continued admiring the beautiful handcrafted furniture displayed throughout the workshop, but employees always smiled when newcomers asked about the framed paper hanging beside the entrance. It wasn't a business award or a financial achievement. It was a handwritten copy of 3 simple promises that had saved far more than a company. They had restored a lonely man's heart, reminded an entire community that compassion can accomplish what money never can, and proved that the strongest foundations are built not from wood or stone, but from trust, kindness, and love freely given. Alder often joked that every masterpiece leaving the workshop carried invisible fingerprints from everyone who believed in one another, and Meredith would simply smile because she knew the greatest thing they had ever built could never be placed inside a showroom. It was a life filled with purpose, shared burdens, open hearts, and the quiet certainty that second chances are rarely accidents. They are gifts that arrive disguised as impossible choices, waiting for someone brave enough to say yes. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Thank you for being part of our community, where stories remind us that kindness is never wasted, forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds, and hope has the power to change an ordinary day into the beginning of a beautiful new life.